If the hospital rate didn't stabilize, we would close indoor dining. It has not. We're going to close indoor dining in New York City on Monday. Outdoor dining and takeout continues.
And that news breaking in just the last hour or so right here on Outnumbered and Overtime. America's small businesses are under siege. Many are wondering if they can survive the pandemic as more states are tightening and reimposing restrictions in some areas. Just today, New York's governor said indoor dining will be shut down in New York City beginning Monday. My next guest owns 4 restaurants in San Francisco where outdoor and indoor dining are still banned. Amanda Michael, owner of the Jane Restaurant Group. Amanda, thanks for being with me today. You know, I've been talking with business owners across the country because I'm trying to get an idea of what happens as we start to heal. We've lost so much human life. But as we start to heal and get past the pandemic, I'm reading a lot of businesses like yours won't be here anymore. What's happening?
You know, it's been such a challenging few months. I mean, I guess 8 or 9 months now. And, you know, since the initial shutdown, you know, we initially lost probably 80% of our business overnight and have just spent the past, 6 months trying to kind of claw our way back, pivoting to only takeout, pivoting to the delivery, adding outdoor dining, limited indoor dining, back to outdoor dining, and then curfews, and then no dining, and, just trying to kind of keep up with all the changing regulations has just been incredibly challenging. And, at the end of the day, like, I love what I do. I love serving customers. I love creating community. I love bringing people joy. I mean, I'm relatively optimistic. We opened a new location during all of this because I believe that we can get through it. But, it gets harder and harder every time. Locations keep shifting, and, laying people off is like an awful thing. Looking at that during the holidays, the staff has been so committed to keeping things going, and we get shut down again, and you just try to keep up with the times and keep positive.
Do you trust the people making the decisions?
That's a loaded question. I mean, I do and I don't. I know that these decisions can't be easy to make, but I do feel like a lot of them are not necessarily founded in good numbers. We've been doing outdoor dining successfully in San Francisco since June, and there was not a spike tied to outdoor dining. I can understand the indoor dining, but, the outdoor dining, it doesn't.
It's a question that we all have, and I'm so sorry to cut us short today, but I'll bring you back. Amanda Michael, thank you. The Daily Briefing now.
Hunter Biden investigation. Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Perino, and this is the Daily Briefing. Well, we are learning just how long Attorney General William Barr may have known about the Justice Department's investigation into Hunter Biden's taxes and business deals, and how long he kept quiet about that. We have Team Fox coverage. Ari Fleischer and Kim Strassel are standing by with reaction. But let's begin with Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel. He's live in Washington. Hey, Mike.
Dana, good afternoon. Fox has reported at least some of the investigation of Hunter Biden's business and tax activities dates back to 2018. In other words, the entire time that his father was a presidential candidate. The Wall Street Journal reports Attorney General Bill Barr knew about the numerous investigations looking into Hunter Biden's business and financial dealings since at least this spring and worked to keep the probes out of public view during the election. A spokeswoman for the Attorney General declined to comment to Fox today. Barr signaled in May he wanted to keep the criminal justice system out of the presidential election.
And as long as I'm Attorney General, the criminal justice system will not be used for partisan political ends. And this is especially true for the upcoming elections in November.
But a key ally of President Trump says that was unfair to the president.
Well, you know what you did? You influenced the election by suppressing very important investigations that were going on that you've been doing for a long time. How long did the FBI have that laptop for Hunter Biden? About a year now. Why did they suppress it? What were they doing? Why did we not know any of this?
It certainly put Attorney General Barr in an awkward spot with the president, who was pretty vocal leading up to the election.
We've got to get the Attorney General to act. He's got to act, and he's got to act fast. He's got to appoint somebody. This is major corruption, and this has to be known about before the election. This has to be done early, so the Attorney General has to act.
There are those on the other side who say Barr did the right thing by trying to keep the Justice Department out of partisan politics. Dana?
Mike Emanuel, thank you so much. Let's bring in Fox News contributors Ari Fleischer and Kim Strassel. So much to cover, and I got a little bit of time extra with you, so that's great. I want to play for you, Ari, some sound from, remember Bobolinsky and the idea that more people within the Biden world knew about this? Listen to what he had to say.
I remember looking at Jim Biden and saying, how are you guys getting away with this? Like, aren't you concerned? And he looked at me and he laughed a little bit and said, plausible deniability.
He said that out loud?
Yes, he said it directly to me, one-on-one in a cabana at the Peninsula Hotel after about a, hour and a half, 2-hour meeting.
Now that we know that this probe is actually wider than just Hunter's tax issues, how does that sit with you?
Well, he's also gotten away with it because that's what you can do when you have the press on your side. Look, one of the things that made America America and has always allowed us to deal with issues, and if there was wrongdoing, it was exposed, was because the press would dig for it. They used to call it without fear or favor, but now they have both fear and favor. They favor the Democrats and they fear doing anything that would benefit Donald Trump. So all these charges that came up in the campaign when the New York Post first reported about this topic, the press suppressed it. I have never seen such a willful decision by the media to ignore news and deride the people who raised questions. Any investigative reporter would have smelled the story, but they were told to stop. There was no digging. You can get away with it if you're a Democrat.
Now, someone that did report on it is on our show right now. This is Kim Strassel here, of course. And Kim, I saw the New York Post cover today called The Hunter Cover-Up. And of course, then there's the Wall Street Journal editorial board talking about this today. And one of the things I thought about when I found you were on the show today is, did you wake up and wonder, where do you go to get your apology?
Yeah, well, and I think there are a number of people who did a good job. You mentioned the New York Post, and the Journal wrote about this, and we got criticized mercilessly, suggesting that we were promoting Russian disinformation, when in fact everyone had done their reporting jobs and verified this information and was indeed absolutely correct. And the one thing that I would add to what Ari just said very correctly is that it wasn't just the Bobolinsky interview. We have had all kinds of evidence that this was a story that needed reporting going well back before last summer, whether it was all of the information that came out during the impeachment proceedings about Hunter Biden and Burisma, whether it was the Grassley-Johnson report that came out this fall that talked about suspicious financial transactions that have been flagged. That is an alarm bell for any journalist that there probably is a federal investigation. And that's before you get to Bobolinsky and plenty of other information that came out. And so the blind eye that was closed to this is just astonishing. And I agree with Ari. It's just a horrible press failure that denied the American public really crucial information.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Ari Fleischer, so the Biden team had Joe Biden up there for their weekly briefing. Not a single reporter asked about this. I'm just being told that in my ear. So that's breaking here, as we see. Jen Psaki, apparently. I'm sorry, not the president-elect. But I did want to ask you this, Ari. So President-elect Biden has been very dismissive of any of these notions for a long time, for about 6 months, right? So he's just blown it off, said there's nothing there. Is that sustainable? I mean, I guess if they're not even going to ask the incoming press secretary, perhaps so. But I just wonder how crippling this might be as he tries to get his administration out of the gate.
Yeah, you just put your finger on it. It is entirely sustainable if the press doesn't dig. You and I think, are cut from a similar cloth. We're both old-fashioned enough to respect the press, to think that the press actually will do their job, that if they see a scandal, they'll cover a scandal, and they won't worry about whether it's a D or an R. And I think the Trump years have made it really hard for people who want to be traditionalists and trust the mainstream media, because they keep showing that that's no longer the case. And now with Joe Biden, You know, perhaps there'll be additional scrutiny of who he appoints for Attorney General. Perhaps they'll make him take a promise, and they make the Attorney General at the Senate hearings take a promise not to interfere in the probe of the President-elect's son. But then I think they go quiet. And as we all know, what the power of the press really is the follow-on questions, the relentlessness, the feeding frenzy, the checking into every lead, the putting in the papers every day. Now it's one and done. They did dutifully report the story involving Hunter Biden. You can't fault the press for not covering it. They did cover it. 30 seconds on ABC, 90 seconds on CBS, 90 seconds on NBC. But now it's one and done. They haven't come back to it.
Yeah. Kim, maybe a last question to you. Do you think the Attorney General, from what you know, did the right thing in not allowing this to come to light while it was still an overt investigation? Covert,
yeah,
excuse me, covert investigation.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Bill Barr acted absolutely responsibly here. And because of what, sort of what Ari and I have been discussing, look, it's a fundamental precept of the Department of Justice that you do not announce ongoing investigations, because the power to ruin someone's reputation forever exists simply by saying that they're being investigated, even if there is no evidence to the contrary. And as somebody who wrote about the FBI and DOJ's incredible failings in 2016, that was a big part of it, that Jim Comey press conference on Hillary Clinton and all the leaks that came out. That was the weaponization of the Department of Justice in a political presidential campaign against the president. So Bill Barr did the right thing here. The failing is the media. There were all kinds of flags. That's their job to get that information out.
Good point.
And they didn't do it.
I tell you what, when I worked at DOJ, I learned 101 ways to say no comment. It was very useful at the time. Ari Fleischer, Kim Strassel, thank you both. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Well, Governor Cuomo announcing major changes in New York City. Next, meet the restaurant owner who says he just destroyed her life. Well, now you can. An Airbnb in Dallas replicated the film's family home, complete with booby traps like swinging paint cans, toy cars on the floor, and a Michael Jordan cutout to scare away thieves. The experience, named the Kevin Holiday Classic Plus Pizza and Traps, runs about $300 a night. But if you're not up for spending the night alone, don't worry. The house can fit up to 6 people. I think that sounds kind of fun. I think we should take the 5 down there. See if my colleagues think. Well, if you think you know yourself pretty well, you may want to ask your dog about that. A recent survey found that 7 out of 10 Americans believe their dogs know them better than they know themselves. The survey also found 68% say their dog is the only reason they kept their sanity during the lockdown, and over 60% of Americans say they don't know where they'd be without the love and support of their dogs. And of course, I feel the same way about Jasper. Now, according to a recent survey by the U.S. Census Bureau, 2.7 million members of households with children say they often do not have enough to eat. Joining me now, the president and CEO of the YMCA, Kevin Washington, on how they are helping to fight America's hunger crisis, especially right now in COVID times. Wonderful to see you, Kevin. I know that you've had a lot to do this year. Tell us about the scope of the need and the increase in it this year that you've seen.
Well, it's good to be with you again, Dana. First of all, let me say that the Y has been focused on feeding kids for over 9 years, feeding healthy meals to our kids in our summer camp and after-school programs. And right now, we are the largest provider of nonprofit serving young people meals. What has happened, as you know, during the pandemic, which has become a health crisis and economic crisis, the need for food in communities has risen exponentially. For us, just to give you an example, in 2019, the YMCA served 25 million meals. Just in 5 months between March and August, we served over 37 million meals to families and children during this particular crisis. So you can see the need has really grown exponentially, and the Y has partnered with several individuals and communities to ensure that we're able to provide meals to those young individuals and families who need it.
You know, I think of the Y, of course, as you know, that I went to the Schlesman Y there in Denver for all sorts of things, gymnastics lessons, swimming lessons, summer fun, day camp, things like that. But also the Y is a community sort of safe place to go where you don't have to be worried that there will be any stigma attached to you if you go to ask for help. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. As I mentioned, during this pandemic, what has been so important as to why I pivoted is they have been a vital community asset, meeting communities where they are and addressing their needs around food insecurity, around essential child care, in terms of supporting seniors from engaging in isolation, working with partners to do blood banks. So during this pandemic, the kinds of issues that we are engaged in has risen, and the why has really met those needs in communities across this country. Let me just give you one example of how that has been met. In the YMCA of Memphis and Mid-South, they usually fed 700 kids during the course of a day. To now, they're feeding over 23,000 families and kids across the spectrum. It really is a testament to how we have been able to partner in communities to ensure we're meeting them where they are and meeting their specific needs. Absolutely.
Well, I love the YMCA, and I know, Kevin, I'm sorry, we're going to have to wrap it up here. Kevin Washington, you do amazing work, and we thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. And thank you for joining us, everyone. Great week, I hope. I'm Dana Perino. I'll see you on the 5. All sorts of shenanigans. You know, we have Facebook Friday. That's always a blast. Hey, Hemmer, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I fired a few questions for Facebook Friday today, so I expect full service.
Oh, good. We'll try to figure out which ones are yours.
I want to learn about your life, Perino. Have a great day, okay, and a good weekend, okay? 5 o'clock. Thanks.
Bye.
Good afternoon. It's Friday, almost made in America. I'm Bill Hemmer. Suggestion is that the White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows ordered Dr. Stephen Hahn to authorize the vaccine by today. Resign. Now, our reporting suggests it did not go that far. Whatever the case, we do know this. As of this hour, the first doses may start as early as Monday. This week, however, we marked a milestone in America. The daily number of deaths earlier this week hit more than 3,000 in one day. Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar kicks off our hour here. And, sir, welcome back to our program, and a good afternoon to you.
Good to be with you, Bill. Thanks for having me.
I saw a couple of interviews earlier today. You say the shots go in the arms Monday or Tuesday. I think that's fantastic news. What's wrong with yesterday?
Well, we just have to get the FDA approval done, but I'll tell you, today's a historic day for the American people. At 7 a.m. today, the FDA announced that they had communicated to Pfizer that we will be approving their emergency use authorization as a product of FDA's independent scientific review process. So we should be getting that approval signed at some point today, tomorrow, as soon as FDA can get everything worked out with Pfizer. And we're already shipping the kits that we use to administer.
I mean, listen, I'm hearing Todd Beamer's voice here. Let's roll. Let's go.
Absolutely.
Listen, amazing work. Operation Warp Speed has succeeded in ways that no one could imagine back in January or February earlier in this year.
You know, Bill,
you broke down, here's the question. You broke down walls of bureaucracy everywhere that no one ever thought about. Did we not go far enough, however? Should we have reformed the FDA to get that out already?
Bill, listen, this is 11 months since this novel pathogen arrived on our shores. It's never been done before. You know, the previous fastest vaccines were, I think, 4 years to get out. And I'll tell you, there were a couple people who did think it could get done. President Trump thought it could get done. He told me we can get this done faster. I told him I thought, given my knowledge of the pharmaceutical industry and of the resources of the U.S. government, we could get it done. And we did Operation Warp Speed, and here we are today. I mean, this is unbelievable, the hope for people.
So I know you're with HHS, and some of this conversation may not be fair to you because I'm asking you questions about the FDA. But here's what the president shot out earlier today. It's still a big old slow turtle. Get the damn vaccines out now. Dr. Hahn and Steve FDA, stop playing games and start saving lives. Would you just address that comment there about the speed?
Well, listen, President Trump has from day one had a tremendous sense of urgency about our work, but he has also given me the ability and the Secretary of Defense the ability to run the process with independence here, and that's what's led to these incredible results. But we're all, every day, every hour, focused on a tremendous sense of urgency. But at the end of the day, what the American people need to know is the FDA has and will only make decisions based on their independent judgment of science, evidence, and the law.
Okay, we wait. New York City is going to ban indoor dining. Is that the right call?
You know, we try to defer to our mayors and our governors about the community mitigation steps that they're going to take and whether they do it by law or by advice. But let's be clear. we are seeing spread of disease from people in overcrowded indoor restaurants and overcrowded bars. But then we see actions against, say, outdoor dining.
Could I stop you on that? Only because in New York, the law is 25% indoors. So they're going to go to 0 as of Monday. And these people are going to suffer greatly. Where is the data that supports indoor dining spreads COVID-19?
Well, we do have data saying that in those indoor dinings and indoor bar settings, we have spread. But whether it's 25%, 50%, or 0, we don't have precise levels of data like that. We did see with Phoenix, those outbreaks in June and July that we saw in the southeast and southwest. By basically getting people to not have such overcrowded indoor dining and indoor bar activity, we were able, and with wearing masks, we were able to get the spread down. But then we see other actions like restrictions on outdoor dining and actually like restrictions on just outdoor activities. And then you start saying, where is the science and the evidence around that? Because people are tired, and if we do restrictions or mitigation requirements that are not based in evidence, if people don't get the why, if they don't understand why they're being asked to sacrifice, they're just not going to comply. So
I think you're exactly right about that, and I think when the governor comes out and makes that announcement today, he's got to back it up as sort of the argument you're making right now. 3 minutes, 2 more topics here. When can a family in Tennessee or Atlanta or anywhere in America, when can they walk into a Kroger or a Walgreens or a CVS and get the vaccine?
Yeah, so here's the timeline. By the end of this month, in just a couple of weeks, we think we'll have 20 million people vaccinated with these Pfizer, and in a week, the Moderna vaccine, we hope, will have the same approval process. So 20 million this month, up to 50 million first vaccinations total by the end of January. We believe we will have 100 million shots in arms by the end of February. That means that by the end of February into March, depending on our governors, they make the call. Depending on our governors, we could see that kind of general vaccination where you can go to your CVS, your Walgreens, your Kroger, your Walmart, get your vaccinations just like your flu vaccinations could really be beginning in that late February into March period.
Okay, so let's play it out over the next 6 months. I spoke with a colleague of yours yesterday, Eric Hargan from HHS. He's very optimistic. He thinks life in America goes back to normal in the month of June. Is that how you see it?
I would agree with Deputy Secretary Hargan there. I think once we're going to have enough vaccine for every American in the second quarter of next year, and it's not like it's a one-time event. Like I said, we're going to be putting out tens of millions of doses possibly each week, vaccinating more and more people, getting more safety, more security as we go. And by the end of the second quarter, if the American people cooperate here, we should have people vaccinated. And I do see by next summer things being back to a much more normal existence.
How would you define American cooperation there?
Well, getting vaccinated. So people for whom it's indicated getting vaccinated. We need people to step up and get vaccinated.
So we could see 30,000 people in a baseball stadium in June? Can we forecast that?
Maybe the end of June, maybe July, August. It's possible.
But
it's possible,
early
Bill.
summer
That's
for
the
sure.
amazing thing. Isn't that incredible?
I agree with you, but that's for the United States, right? Like global normality would then turn around at what point in 2021?
Well, this is where America is going to play a leading role. And President Trump at the vaccine summit that he did earlier this week signed an executive order where he says he's going to protect Americans first with vaccines. But, I've got contracts for up to 3 billion doses of vaccine. We've built incredible manufacturing capacity here in the United States. And once we're taken care of, we're going to be able to give away or sell the excess vaccine that we produced and also make that capacity available to the rest of the world. So the rest of the world will also be able to be getting back to normalcy through America's leadership in global public health.
Okay, we're watching the wires here. We'll see whether or not the FDA punches through that approval. Secretary Azar, thank you for coming on today and taking all the questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Bill.
You bet. Now to the fallout from Hunter Biden's taxes and financial dealings. Our corporate cousin, the Wall Street Journal, reporting that AG Bill Barr knew about the probes into the president-elect's son since at least the spring, but he worked to keep them from going public during the campaign. Hunter Biden responding to the investigation of his taxes in Delaware, saying that he acted legally and appropriately, and Mike Emanuel picks up the reporting in Washington from there. Mike, good afternoon.
Bill, good afternoon. A spokeswoman for the Attorney General declined to comment on that Wall Street Journal report when I reached out today. But Bill Barr was pretty clear back in May he did not want the criminal justice system in the middle of the presidential election.
We live in a very divided country right now, and I think that it is critical that we have an election where the American people are allowed to make a decision, a choice, between President Trump and Vice President Biden based on a robust debate of policy issues.
A short time ago, a key Biden surrogate praised Barr for, in his view, doing the right thing.
Anything about this other than some brief press reports. What I read was he was following the rules of the Department of Justice. If he followed the rules, that's a good thing.
But a White House ally vented his frustration with the Justice Department on this Hunter Biden issue.
How long did the FBI have that laptop for Hunter Biden? About a year now. Why did they suppress it? What were they doing? Why did we not know any of this? Why wasn't Congress given that information so we could conduct investigations and hearings?
There are various investigations looking into Hunter Biden's business and financial dealings and his taxes. There's also the president-elect's brother, Jim. Both Jim and Hunter have been accused of trading on their family name to land lucrative overseas business deals, including a deal with a Chinese energy firm. A powerful Republican Senate committee chair who was already digging into these matters says Biden Inc. could be a major problem.
I think the vice president has all kinds of legal jeopardy here. When they, if it's a true investigation, they're going to start opening up all these financial transactions. This is very troubling, but that's where we published our report at the end of September, and the press, the media ignored it, and they had an enormous impact on our elections.
Some Republicans are now expressing the concern with the new president coming in January 20th. U.S. attorneys investigating Hunter Biden and potentially others could be replaced. So the case is being made. They must be allowed to complete their work.
Thank you, Mike. Mike Emanuel on that today. The Biden team, by the way, was asked 0 questions today about Hunter. Molly Hemingway weighs in on the media coverage of that in a moment. But first, there is this. U.S. Supreme Court, after more than a dozen states back Texas in his election challenge. Andy McCarthy will tell us the state of that in a moment. And Joe Biden heads to Georgia next week after warning the defund the police slogan could hurt Democrats in those races. Carl Rove will give us the lay of the land in both races in Georgia coming up next.